The one thing that I wanted to ask you about, you've mentioned, this is the second time in some of our talks that you've mentioned being well-liked. And I had a manager one time that said, basically, she suggested that 90% of who's valuable to the company is whether they're liked or not. And so hiring decisions were often made based on who's popular. They didn't have to be incredibly effective. They had to be effective enough and highly popular. I don't think that they're dichotomized. I don't think that I think that being liked a little bit is important, but I don't think that winning a popularity contest is the most important thing or should determine whether we get rid of somebody or not based on public consensus. Well, 6 of us don't like the guy and 2 of us do, and so he's gone.
Well, first of all, I don't mean well-liked on a just pure sort of high school level popularity contest. What always in a work context, whether it's a team that's made up of contractors or whether it's a team that's made up of permanent full-time employees, always in the work context, it's not just an exchange of productivity. There are other levels of social exchange, and does my interaction with this group help me feel like I'm accomplishing something? Do I feel good about myself? Do they appreciate what I do? So always in a social interaction, and that this includes work, are those other channels going on? It's not just a single channel of I did this thing, it worked, therefore I am productive, the other stuff shouldn't matter. But as we know, you can take the most skilled person in the world, but if they're difficult and they're disruptive to those other channels in the social exchange and the social context, meaning that that the other people don't get some of their other needs, then it becomes a problem. And so what I mean when I throw out that phrase "well liked," and I'll try to come up with a better one, is I'm saying there are enough of those other channels that are working. People are feeling like they're accomplishing something. They're feeling appreciated. It's mutually beneficial in those regards. Then work itself is more productive. So there's a basic assumption which I think you're bringing out in me. I have a basic assumption that you can take the most effective, most productive 2 people in the world, but if there's not this other stuff going on that's related to social interaction, then it's probably not going to work. I mean, this is I'm not a psychologist, but it's my assumption. This is why autistics tend to be loners. Autistics, are way out there in terms of their ability to think critically, but their ability to empathize and interact with people socially is not so good, and therefore, even if they're extremely talented, they tend to not be integrated into groups. I love some of the studies that have been done on primates, on baboons, on chimpanzee culture, on gorilla culture, and it's kind of about this thing. It's about mutual assistance, mutual rewards. You groom me, I groom you. It's just about, well, you take care of the children, I'm going to go out and find some food. But there's a whole lot of other exchanges that are occurring, and that's what I mean in the context of work. And I don't think we can dodge that. I don't think we can get around that need as we work amongst our fellow humans.
I wouldn't want to dodge it, but I do find it impossible for corporate entities to interpret that stuff without an intense amount of prejudice. So when someone says, well, I don't mean that you're well-liked, I mean that you make me feel good. I look at that and I think, no, that means the same thing. So what it is if you if when you're around me, you're uncomfortable, regardless of what the reason is. When you're around me, you're uncomfortable. When you're near me, you feel like you don't like me, and I'm a cause of distraction. I'm hearing the same stuff as I saw in high school, where basically yes. In every single corporate entity I've ever been involved in, and in every single school I've ever attended, every group almost necessarily created at least 1 or 2 individuals. The Korean word is wangta. and it means outcast. They've always picked somebody out that it's almost like they need there to be one person or two people that are different enough that we're cool because we're together and we're not them. And I see all that in corporate life, and those guys do get fired, but they invariably get fired, even if they're high contributors, and they get fired for silly reasons, trumped-up reasons that people sort of look the other way and don't hold others to the same standard. But then they hire other people to take their place, or they rotate the position and somebody becomes unpopular because, or whatever. Now, I want to say one other thing, though. In leadership, I get it. If I am a leader and I don't inspire people to be productive in the company, that's one thing. If I am a coworker and Johnny, Peter, and Susan think I'm a nerd, piss on them. That's what I think.
So this is where it changes. I think you're really driving home a subtle difference as the composition of our work groups changes. All right, what is common in the traditional workplace in high school is that we have to be there. Okay, especially in high school, we have to go through some high school, and in most cases, we actually only have a choice of the high school that's in our district, unless we happen to have parents who are willing to send us to a private high school. So we're all forced to be there, and it creates a different dynamic. And this is the thing about work as well, is while we're not 100% forced to be at the company, there is friction. It is difficult to move from job to job. There's a long hiring process. We can't just jump. Therefore, there is some short-term, there's some change. You're kind of stuck there until you can move on and find another job. I look at the world of contracting a lot more like the open source software development movement. And so if you look at people who are working on a project, if you look at their reputation, certain people who are big contributors, you see this in eBay, you see it also in Amazon, people who are encouraged to review a lot, who are in some particular form, they tend to contribute a lot of high value answers. That's when so maybe well-liked is not the right phrase, but once you're not forced to be in that group, it really starts to balance out. Hey, this guy's great. He's always helping me out. He's always got the right answer. Man, I love it that we have him or her in this community. And I see the world of contracting a lot like the concepts that were formed by the open source software movement. So that's where I'm going with the idea of mutual respect and well-liked. It's for people who sort of self-organize around each other. You're no longer forced to be together, and therefore the outcast isn't forced to stay in. The outcast goes to somewhere where he or she actually fits in and is more productive. I don't know if that works for you, but that is a distinction.
No, it doesn't work for me, because my thought is traditional corporations, when they hire contractors, have a mix of employment and contract relationships, and they tend to treat contractors as integrated persons with they expect all the contribution but fewer of the privileges. So when I was an employee in a corporation, I saw a lot of contractors come and go. The number one reason for contractors coming and going had nothing to do with their productivity and deliverance. It had to do because somebody who worked there a long time that we couldn't afford to lose got in a snit and didn't like something about them. I heard things like, Joe's weird, and he makes me uncomfortable. I look at him and he's creepy and he's weird. And pretty soon, some manager would pull 2 or 3 people in and go, do you think Joe's weird? Does he make you uncomfortable? And Joe's gone, because it's just that easy to get rid of a contractor. Now, those companies are stupid. I look at those companies as placing high school above results, because every time you replace the contractor, it sets the project back. But I think that's when people hear the ideas like, you have to be well-liked to be effective, I think that's exactly what they're hearing. I would modify this a little differently. I don't think contractors can leave all that easy. I think every time a contractor leaves a company, potentially, it's not as bad as traditional employment, but it makes it potentially harder to get another contract if you don't leave well. It may be much harder than an employee who can explain away why he left suddenly after 3.5 years of employment. But a contractor who's there 4 months and then bang, you're gone, maybe, I don't know. So the one thing I will say where I think I kind of am starting to agree with some of what you're saying, maybe it's a matter of language, but I'm not sure it is. I think it might be concepts, is that you begin when you work with people. I hire contractors. I have a lot of contractors that work for me. I also work for various clients. Now, I'm a contractor in essence for those clients, but it's a client-company relationship. My company does work for them, and then I hire contractors to do work for my company. And what I find is that what that's taught me to do is to treat everybody like a client. I treat the people that work for me like a client. If they get emotionally bent out of shape because they misinterpreted an email I sent, where I'm just being blunt about what I need changed, then I write another email saying, I understand. I'm sorry if I misspoke. I want you to know I value you as a member of the team. This is what I'm meaning. And when we're in this type of environment, I'll probably give you these sort of quick, change this, move this here. It's not meant to sort of push you around, but it's just because we have to deliver this in 2 hours and we're on the cutting room floor there. So, and then it works out and they understand because I'm using the same professional processes for moderating conflict and clarifying disputes and negotiating change that I would use with a client. So I get all of that. What I worry about, and maybe I'm wrong to think that the high school environment that you see in so many employment situations will carry over into contracting for years to come. But that's what I worry about, the notion that being well-liked is still part of the deal. Because if it is, that may be a job, but it's not my work life.
No, see, this is the thing. But the bottom line is, when we end up with a truly efficient market of work, where you can pretty much find the contract work that you want with the types of clients that you want most of the time, you're not going to put up with that kind of situation. And there's also going to be a lot more information. Remember, on eBay, on Amazon, we've got all of this rating type stuff going on. And you very quickly find out who's not a reliable seller or who tends to sell you goods that are not what you expected. And the same thing is going to go on with the world of work, whether it's, hey, this employer is really difficult. They tend to protect people who are really political. It's not a good deal. That information is going to come out quickly. And so you're going to self-select. You're going to say, oh, yeah, so I shouldn't take this job.